Evening, Cheeseheads. Welcome to a Monday night edition of the Cheese Room, where we will be celebrating a victory, and a really good one at that, over Newcastle. We're all buzzing. We were just talking about it before. You know, we're hoping to have some good comments in the comments off you lot, and let's get into it. So, top right, Becky. Obviously, you were there yesterday. How were you, Becky? How was your experience yesterday?
It was great. As those of you that watched regularly know, I love going to Spurs anyway. And this season is so much easier than last season, even when we lose. But yesterday, it all just clicked. Even from before kickoff, when Son was playing and he wasn't injured, it all just, the second the whistle went, it was just on it. And it was just one of those games where we've been coming. We've been getting ready to thrash somebody, and we finally done it. And it was just wonderful. And I can't wait to talk about it.
Great, that's what we want to hear. And HG, all the way from Austria. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I didn't have the day that Becky did yesterday, but I suspect I'm just as happy. Yeah, I'm doing really well. I kind of walked on cloud nine through the school today, expecting to hear various comments, and of course I didn't hear any because we won. But it was a good day. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, for anyone watching, Brendan's usually been hosting. He's a lot more professional than me, so you will have to just put up with my lack of tech savvy and stuff like that. But I have tried my best, and here we have the starting lineups. So Vicario in goal, Porro right back, Udogie left back, Romero and Davies. Sarr came in for Højbjerg, Basuma, Johnson pushed out to the right, Kulu in the attacking midfield role, Son pushed over to the left, and Richarlison up front came in for the Chelsea. Becky, when you saw that lineup, what were your thoughts? Especially with Sonny pushed out to the left. Was your nose put out of joint by that, or were you quite happy?
No, I was just pleased he was playing. So after the knock on Thursday, and then we didn't see any training videos on Friday and any from Saturday. Yeah. And I thought, they're doing that because everyone will spot that Son's not there. And even when they did the walk, when they show them arriving in the stadium and they're walking in there nice, and they had these new jumpers, didn't they, and nice suits. Someone was showing me in the pub. I was like, oh, Sonny's not there. Sonny would be the first one. He's captain. Where is he? And then I thought, okay, he's not playing. We were having discussions about what would happen and who would be playing where, and assuming that it would maybe be Kulusevski and Johnson and then Richarlison, and what would happen in midfield. And then Son played. And then, like you said, he played out left. And there's been lots of discussion even since Thursday about, what is Son's best position. We got in the stadium this time a little bit earlier than we normally do, because with it being a 4:30 kickoff, there isn't a mad rush. We still set off at 9 o'clock in the morning, but there wasn't the rush to get in. So we were in the ground about 3:30, and we were watching them doing all the warm-ups, and it was very much get it to both wings and cross it in. So much like the Udogie goal that Son assisted for Udogie, they were all practicing that. Sarr was on the end of them, Kulusevski was on the end of them, Richarlison was on the end of them. And there was a few of us in the South Stand really cheering on Richarlison every time he scored one. And we were all sort of joking, going, he still hasn't scored with his feet. He's just scored headers for Spurs. This is finally going to be the game, and trying to kind of boost and kind of lift ourselves up. I said to a lot of people, I didn't go to West Ham because those sort of games we just can't do on a school night. We got back at 1 o'clock in the morning last night as it was. But it was I had very low expectations of yesterday, because I thought we were going to thrash West Ham. And we were very flat against West Ham. So I kind of went yesterday wanting to see everybody. Everyone's talking about what they're doing for Christmas and trying to kind of see the people as well as everything. And then it all just sort of clicked and came together. And I'm just so pleased with Richarlison. But in going back to what you said about the lineups, the assist that Son made, Richarlison looked much freer. I thought Johnson played so much better. So the only thing for me slightly was Højbjerg not playing. And then obviously we decided that meant Kulusevski was going to play further forward. And then watching that, Kulusevski was amazing yesterday. He was everywhere. He was really had this kind of, opportunity to be everywhere and on all these positions. And for those of you that, I didn't know when we got there, he was wearing a Sonny mask, like Son did last year before the World Cup. So it just all kind of came together. So I think I just heard someone saying in the South Stand, and this is interesting for January actually, pretty much anybody who signs for Spurs now from midfield forwards has to play in two positions. So there's someone that has the flexibility to play in different positions, and that showed that yesterday. We had Johnson back out on the right, we had Son on the left, we had Kulusevski in a different position. Sarr was back, which meant Bissouma's role was slightly different, and it's just we are buying players of that kind of ilk. Davies has been playing left centre back, and and it's all that sort of idea. So I was pleased Sonny was playing, and like I said, from click, it came together so well.
Yeah, I mean, HG, what did you think of it? I think me and you've discussed before. I actually kind of prefer Kulusevski in that attacking midfield role, because I think when he plays out wide, he doesn't have. I think when you play wide, I like a wide man to have that little bit of pace, and he has got skill. He has got a trick, and he's strong, but he struggles to just get that extra yard when he gets into the box. But in that middle of midfield, he can pick the ball up deep. He can build some momentum. He can drift one way and the other, and I think he's far more effective. So, was that your thoughts when you saw that team selection?
Look, when I saw the team selection, I'm sitting there trying to work out who was going to be where, right? Because we've looked at previous games in the past, and you think, well, Richarlison has played left wing most of the season with Son in the middle, and I wasn't really sure I wanted to see that again. I figured, well, if Johnson is probably going to be on the right-hand side, but then what happens with Kulusevski? And I know that even in that graphic you showed with this idea that Spurs play a 4-2-3-1, I still don't really think we do. I still think we play a 4-3-3, and that would have meant Kulusevski being in midfield. And we've seen most of the season, he plays off the right. He likes to be, maybe not on the touchline as a right winger, but even in the attacking 8, he's played on the right-hand side. So I was thinking, are we going to have Sarr on the left? And I really didn't want to see Sarr, Udogie, and Richarlison down the left, because to me, that's two of those three are massively out of position, and it then affects Udogie's importance or what he can do. So when I saw them actually start playing and realised that Richarlison was the 9 and Son was on the left wing, and more importantly, Kulusevski was playing on the left of the 3, then I started to think, okay, there's a lot more balance to this. It's a better balance. We've talked on previous shows about Brennan Johnson down the left, doesn't really seem to be confident, doesn't want to go down the outside. It's very, I would imagine, quite easy to play against him, in the same way that Kulusevski might be easy to defend against if he's on the right. And so I was nervous when I saw the 11, but when I saw them starting and saw them playing, I started to think, oh, this could actually work. And we said at the early start of the season, when it was kind of Richarlison as the 9 and Son as the left winger, some games it didn't really work then. Right, when we were playing against those more defensive teams, it was like, how is this going to function? Can Son really, can he really play on the left in the system that we were using? Was it too different to how he's played before? But we saw it yesterday, and it looked for the first time really all season that Son was comfortable out where he's played most of his career, let's be honest, but he was comfortable in this particular system and what he was being asked to do. The amount of times we saw him take the right back on, take Trippier on, I feel like we hadn't seen that at all really from Son this season, partly because he's played in the middle, but even when he was playing left wing, and we didn't see it all of last season either. So when we saw it and it was working, you got excited. You got to see Sarr, who, in theory doesn't do much, but suddenly does everything when you start noticing him in a part of the pitch where he's most comfortable. It just felt like finally we had, square pegs for square holes, or round pegs for round holes, or however you want to describe it. But the team looked better. And to me, that's why we ended up playing better.
Yeah, well, you said balance, didn't you, the other week? And the tone was set, wasn't it? Because we got at them early. Like Richarlison was slid in a couple of times and got a shot away and got a corner. Whereas when we slid Højbjerg in against West Ham, he set the tone by tripping over his own feet in the box, didn't he? So it was a little bit, you know what I mean? So we set off with a little bit more intent, and you just felt that goal was coming, didn't you? And I think it was in the 26th minute. We scored the first
even before
one.
that, though, if we go back, we need to think about from where we were, what felt like the sitter that Isak missed. When actually it was the deft touch that Davies got. I've seen that back so much. I love Twitter the day after Spurs have won, even when we drew against City, to be fair. I didn't go on it all on Friday. Thank God I was so busy at school I didn't go on Twitter, because I'd imagine it was awful. But I've seen so many lovely things back. And yeah, that deft touch, because we were like, we were in Southampton, we're like, what's he done? He must have just missed it. But actually, Davies.
No.
And when you watch it back today, it's like he's got roadrunner legs, to like really like super fast legs to kind of catch him up and then make that touch. And then you can see him and Vicario kind of chest pumping, and so I think, and he says that in the post-match interview, doesn't he, to say actually that's at 0-0. And we talked earlier in the season before we had all the injuries, and when we were getting results and we were starting to kind of play really well and things were starting to click, we had strong Vicario at 0-0, and we had incidences where I can remember Fernandez headed it over the bar for United, for example. These sort of incidences, that little bit of luck, and that's what we had against Newcastle. And like I said before, I had very low expectations of yesterday because I thought, if we can't beat West Ham, we're going to really struggle against Newcastle. If they, go 2-0 up, it could be a cricket score. But that sort of impetus from Davies and Romero seemed just so much more assured, and Udogie I thought really played a lot better. I know since he's kind of come back from his injury and his suspension, it wasn't quite working. He was just kind of dropping a shoulder and going a few paces forward, and then Porro was, and you could just sort of feel it really, really building. So I think that at 0-0 was really important. But then, yeah, like you said, Sonny running down the wing against Trippier, he just couldn't keep up with him. And I've just seen people put in the comments about how he still Spurs. It was really lovely. Trippier took 2 corners in the south stand and he clapped the supporters before we clapped him, and that was really lovely. But then people were singing back at him, "You're Tottenham and you are." The second one, particularly watching it back today, Trippier nearly falls over, doesn't he? Son does like what Maddison did to Saka in the Arsenal game. He just sort of goes in that sort of burst of pace and he's gone. So yeah, I think in terms of, you could really feel it building, and me and Jack, and obviously everyone's around us is joking, going, "Oh, we're 1-0 and we've got to kick on," and getting that second goal just before half time just really kind of made it that sort of party atmosphere. Newcastle have got a massive game this week in the Champions League, and it kind of felt that really at 2-0 they weren't going to have enough to come back into it, and then obviously we then kind of kicked on.
Yeah, you were right, Beck. I missed out that tackle by Davies. I mean, that was fantastic, wasn't it, HG? That was great defending. I mean, probably Isak still probably could have done a little bit better, but that was fantastic defending it. And I think we should, mention Ben Davies, because to be fair to him, he's not looked. He is a fullback. I think you can play centre back, but through all this period where we haven't had a left centre back, he hasn't really put a foot wrong, has he?
I don't remember him putting a foot wrong. I mean,
No.
that doesn't mean he hasn't. It just hasn't stood out. I mean, even though we've lost, what was it, 4 of the 5 before yesterday? Yeah. We've all thought that Spurs were playing quite well. I don't feel like any point Spurs were kind of worried defensively. There were moments against City where they overpowered us, but it's City. You should expect that. But it felt as if, especially once Romero was back, that the balance was really there. But even when it was Royal and Davies, I don't feel like our defence was terrible. It was clearly 4 fullbacks playing together, right? So you're going to see a lowering of the standards, but I don't think that it was an individual at any point. And with the way we were yesterday, and Davies is just, he's comfortable on a football pitch. I mean, and that sounds crazy that he's 30 and he's had years of experience, but he doesn't look phased by much. Right, he's competent on the ball. He's composed on the ball. I remember one game years ago at Anfield when he got done pretty much consistently by Sadio Mane. But we're talking 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe now. It's a long time ago, and he's definitely the unsung hero of the squad. I don't think anyone really wants to see him in the 11 every week. But I think we all know that when he plays, we are really going to see a bad performance. And he does tend to play well against Newcastle. I think I heard a comment in the commentary saying that he scored the most goals against Newcastle than anyone else, which for a defender to have, I mean, he probably only scored maybe 5 or 10 in his whole career, but to have someone that I've seen him score against Newcastle in the flesh. But it's a weird one. I'm just happy that we have him. I'm happy that Anthony Gordon didn't shoot, because I don't feel like the fullback got to him, and he could have had a free shot at Vicario. But again, I liked the decision-making from Davies when clearly we're under stress. I think when you look at the replay, obviously he's running back and he's looking where Isak is and he's looking where the keeper is. And just before Gordon goes to play the cross, Davies almost slows down to be ready for what might happen. It's incredible that he then still gets some touch on the ball. I think it was even his weaker foot to do it. But it saved us because Isak wasn't going to miss. I mean, it was a key moment of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, well, so we sort of got away with that one. Did did the crowd sort of turn it up a notch after that then, Beck? Because obviously we'd been on the front foot, hadn't we? And then they sort of came back at us. If that had gone in, we'd have been
Yeah,
same old
I think
Spurs, wouldn't we?
the
But did
atmosphere.
that sort of like the crowd sort of turn it up a notch after that happened then? And then we
Yeah, I
obviously
think
went on
that
to score our first.
the atmosphere at the ground this season has been very good. I wasn't at West Ham. I could imagine there were periods of West Ham where it was probably quite flat, but the starting like from the trumpet, I think it's really cool at the moment. The refs wait for the trumpet to finish and the verses to finish before they blow the whistle. Very a la Never Walk Alone at Liverpool, and it's kind of that really helps. So that sort of starts them on the front foot. Yeah, I think that everyone I'm speaking to, they say the same thing. Even if we do concede, we have the firepower to keep going. And although it'd be annoying, it would have stopped that rot of scoring first, because I think I read somewhere today it's something stupid like the 10th consecutive game in a row this season that we've scored first. So I think had we conceded, we'd have just kicked on. It just sort of helps. Like I was reading the comments there saying about Davies' distribution to Son was really good as well, and that kind of helped that sort of movement. And Son just looked really sharp. So when Udogie and Davies were kind of passing it to Son, and he was kind of on his way. Like I said before, Kulusevski was very much in the mix as well. Bissouma looked freer. We've already said about Sarr. I was just reading again. I tweeted last night to say that I felt that starting 11, every single one of them was much better, really up for it. And it's almost one of those games where it's really difficult to pick a player of the match or a man of the match because everybody played really well. Whereas on Thursday, it was like only one or two played really well. And although I'm reading again, they're like, oh, Newcastle have got loads of injuries and Newcastle are tired. We've got loads of injuries and we played on Thursday. So I think it's a bit like what we said at Wolves. We wanted it more, I think. Once we kind of went 1-0, 2-0, we wanted it more. And that's what it was like at Wolves. It was just sort of, we talked on here about we could still be playing and we still wouldn't have scored. And that was the same for Newcastle. They should never have scored. Højbjerg loses the ball and they should never have scored. It should have been 4-0. But
how odd. Joe Linton must have scored more goals against us than anybody else. I mean, he must have scored 90% of his career goals against Tottenham, Joe Linton. And he's not a prolific goal scorer.
I don't mind him scoring if we get 4. I mean, that's the thing. He, as a striker, he was terrible. As a midfield player, he is, quite a bit better, to be honest. It's a pretty good positional switch from Eddie Howe. But,
But I think when he was a striker and he never scored goals, we were still the only fucking team he scored against.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I remember that game very well.
Yeah. And when you watch it, you sat there watching, you're like, fucking Joe Linton. Do you know what I mean? When he bags, you're like, I cannot believe this. Yeah. But HG, our first goal, so, that's our left back, 2 yards out of the goal line, tapping it in. Love to see that, don't you?
Anyone tapping it in. But the thing is, that's his job. Like, it's always funny to hear the pundits.
That's his job,
so surprised. They're so surprised to see that our fullbacks are so far forward. And I'm like, do you only watch the games that Spurs are on TV in? Because even if you do, you should know that by now. We've been on quite a lot this season. It was, I think it was even Udogie that got the ball out to Son in the first place.
Yeah.
So he just makes the run into the box, and that's what you want to see from your midfielders. And let's face it, as an inverted fullback, he basically is a midfielder when we have the ball. So if he's not making the run, who is? Like, I think Kulusevski is one of those players who would rather wait on the edge and see what happens. So you need to have those people who, get in areas that can hurt teams. And it was a simple finish because he got himself there. So it was a great. It felt like Sonny at his best, right? Yeah. Because even though he's not a 1-versus-1 monster, he has one trick, and it tends to work. So it doesn't matter that he's only got one, but he shifts it onto his left and he drives it low, either into the far corner or across the box. That's what Sonny does. And so Udogie, all he has to do is divert it. And we saw a couple of, certainly over the weekend, I saw some chances other teams have had where they didn't divert it. They tried to put their foot through it or do something fancy and it doesn't work. And so it was a brilliant goal. It was one of those goals where it happened so quickly that I almost didn't cheer. It was like, I remember being at Palace and the own goal they scored, we whacked it across the box and suddenly it's in the net. And from the angle I had no idea how it had got there. You couldn't see from where the away fans were. And in this case, it's been whacked across the box. It goes in the net. I don't really care who scored. I'm happy anyway. But it was it was just, it's nice to see that the fullback, let's face it, has played wing back most of his career, but so he knows what to do. He knows to make those runs, and he knows when to do it. Like he doesn't just run forward as if that's the only thing he's been asked to do. He picks his moments, and he's picked his moments well throughout the season. It's just that this time he actually got on the end of a cross rather than, I think most of the season he's been asked to make that cross. He's made the run kind of inside the winger. The winger's just passed it around the back, and then Udogie is crossing it. And this time he was able to get into the box. It felt like, again, one of Ange Ball's typical goals.
Yeah, it's a goal typically we scored a lot this season. Like I was saying, they were definitely warming up to that effect. But it's like you think about even Johnson's goal against Wolves and Son's goal against Arsenal, and they're just a couple I can remember. They've all come where Kulusevski or Johnson or Richarlison has got the line and crossed it, and someone has been there. Like I said, it could have been Sarr, it could have been any number of players. And as HG says, sometimes it's an own goal as well. And I think when you watch it back in slow motion, because obviously it's the complete opposite end to us in the stadium, slow down, it's just so pinpoint. And it reminded me of the Luton goal as well when Van der Ven scored, when Maddison kind of pulled it back. And the second goal when Son does that for Richarlison. It's different people being on the end of it, but the process of how they're kind of crossing it in, it doesn't matter who it is, that it's all kind of part of this sort of family and this process that they keep talking about. It was just great, and it's so lovely to hear today that Udogie apparently has extended his contract, and it's just the next year Sarr's going to be known as a homegrown player. So all these players that it's their first season in the Premier League, and it's almost like I tweeted yesterday to say that Sarr, I felt, made a difference. I know I just said before that every single player I thought really upped their game. But Sarr made such a difference to Bissouma and his kind of strength and again, he's just so young and he's just still so new, and it's when it works, that's what we see. It's just so lovely to watch, and it's just like I said, it's all kind of clicks, and it was just very fluid football, and it was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, Conte had Sarr at his disposal last season. Played him in Milan where he did really well, and then didn't play him again, and basically moaned that he didn't have the players to play decent football. So, but we don't want to go back there anyway. But HG,
all this season is doing is showing that Conte basically has one way, and that's it. And like, as much as Ange might only have one way that he wants to do it, like we all sat here at the start of the season worried that Porro couldn't be a right back in this system, that he wouldn't have the defensive discipline. And very early on, I think Ange came out and said, this is nonsense. The guy can do it easily, because Ange knows. He knows what is required from those players. We were told at the start of the season that Udogie, can't play left back in a 4 by all these Italian football experts. And we're like, but even at that point, we're like, yeah, but he's not being asked to play back in a 4. It's like we couldn't take our own advice when it came to Porro on one side, but we were quite willing to believe that, hang on a second, like these inverted, I don't know why, it's an interesting phenomenon, but we just, it feels like, and I said this in my Facebook thing yesterday, that it feels like we have fullbacks, like these two are going to be, inverted or not, they are going to start left-hand side of the defence, right-hand side of the defence most of the games. They are the new Walker and Rose. And their jobs are different, but they are better going forward. They are better on the ball. And I loved Danny Rose as a footballer. I thought he was great, much better than people gave him credit for. Kyle Walker, his job was less. I felt like the fullbacks in those teams, that their job was basically to be the width, just to be there. They
control that side of the pitch.
Yeah, they weren't asked to really to cross the ball. But because we know that Danny Rose could a little bit and Kyle Walker really couldn't. But they were just there to make sure that those players had options always. But you look at Porro and Udogie, I mean, in some respects, they're our two most important attacking players because they are making things difficult. They are the ones making runs. They are the ones making the defenders have to account for. They can't just focus on the front three. They have to be aware that we will have people flooding the box.
I love Porro, I think, as much as Becky loves Son. What a fucking player he is. He
just gets it as well, doesn't he?
He gets it. All that, Beth, but what a player. Passing, technical ability. He is fantastic.
He doesn't always get it right, though. It's like HG said, when Gordon was attacking, that was Porro's position and he wasn't really there. But that will come with practice and experience. And we've talked a lot this season. There's been the odd time where the other team have got in and it's Porro's side. But that like you said, he was playing like left back last year or wing back last year, wasn't he?
But they start higher up the pitch, you're always going to be against that, and Gordon's pretty quick. But yeah, you're right. But as a footballer, he's fantastic. So, but we'll come back onto him later because Richarlison's second goal, but obviously his first goal, Son pretty much doing the same again. And like with what we're talking about, Son playing, I know sort of know what he's going to do, but you can never be sure because it's not written. He can go left or right, Son, can't he? Like he can use both feet. He can take you on the inside and pull that ball back like he did for the 2 goals, or he can turn back inside and get a shot away. So you can't predict what he's going to do. He's not too predictable, but obviously he's beat Trippier, got a bit of a lucky ricochet off him, but he pulled Trippier's pants down, really, didn't he?
Yeah.
The second time.
Trippier nearly fell over. The way he hit him, he almost kind of stumbled backwards, didn't he?
Yeah, and then obviously he pulls it back for Richarlison to get his first goal with his feet. Becky,
which is such a stat in it, with his feet.
Yeah,
and I was really happy for him as well. He's that he didn't lean back and head and oof it over the bar. It went in. It was it looked like it's something he'd practiced, and he's come out today and says that after his operation he just feels much fitter, stronger. He's not playing through pain. You just hope he kicks on from it, really. And he's saying he's looking forward to the next game. I must admit, I know we're kind of doing things in the wrong order, but that did feel quite sorry for him when he came off, having scored 2 goals. Particularly as we had a penalty. It will be. It will be.
Nurse him. Yeah, I think that's all it was.
But when you're near a hat trick, when you haven't had a hat trick, it's you kind of feel for him, don't you? But yeah, he just looked freer. He looked like the player we thought we'd bought. He was, making tackles back. He was tracking back. He was, being awkward, and he looked stronger, and all these things that we kind of thought he would be. Don't get me wrong, he's not a 30 goal a season sort of player yet, but he just looked a lot, I could keep using that word, hungrier for it. And when you get a few things go your way, you build on confidence. Had that first one, like I said, skied it over the bar, and I do remember one later on where it came across and it sort of pinged over his head. And if we go back to Thursday's header, there are still, he's a bit rusty, but having those 2 goals, hopefully really something for him to kick on. But yeah, I was delighted for him.
I think we've got to hope. Sorry, HG, carry on.
I think on the commentary I had, they talked about it being the first time in like 4 or 5 years, that he scored 2 goals in a Premier League game where one of them wasn't a penalty. So he scored 2, but there was always a penalty involved. And this time, and it's because of how we play. Like those 2 goals that he scored, not much was really asked of him. He just had to be in the box and be on the end of things. And that seems to be what a number 9 in Ange Ball is going to have to do. Like, yes, he was maybe a little bit lucky that his first touch let him down, but the pass was so good it didn't matter for the second. But still, like, we've got players playing in their right position. And to me, there's no doubt that's why it helped. The team works better when we're not trying to plug a hole here, there, and everywhere. And Richarlison, like, you would imagine he'll start against Forest on Friday. You'd imagine that his confidence will be higher. I think he played well there last season for Spurs. He got an assist for Kane right at the end of the game at Forest.
Yeah.
So you just
on his sub.
and of course that was the time when Brennan Johnson kicked Richarlison to the ground for showing off. But I just you can't help but be pleased for him because, again, he's never really complained. He's been played out of position most of last season. He was never going to be the main striker, but even when he did play, it was on the right-hand side for a lot of it, which was never been his thing. And so, I'm hoping that, he may not be the 30-goal striker, but we talked a lot at the start of the season about how we were going to replace Kane's goals. Well, the team is doing that. Like, Son has got 10 goals in 16 games, whereas last year it took him 36. Like, we are going to replace those goals, and it's going to come from players that maybe we didn't expect it, but when the team is playing better, the chances will come and the goals will come.
Yeah, I mean, we need him. I think we need him to start scoring goals. One swallow doesn't make a summer. That was good yesterday, but we actually do need him to build on that now. Yeah. And that will hopefully give him the confidence. We could do with him getting 3 or 4 over the Christmas period. Son is going to the Asia Cup or whatever it is in January. So we are going to need another focal point. So we are going to need him to turn up. But I felt yesterday that was the first time I'd ever really seen him play with a bit of purpose and a bit more belief. If you get what I know, he's been injured, but you sort of, I watched it yesterday and I didn't feel like he was our reserve striker. If you get what I mean, he was
involved. He was making
involved
tackles. He was tracking back. I can remember some things in the centre circle. I can't remember what the score was at the time now, but he was doing things. He wasn't just standing there on the penalty spot waiting for a header to come across. He was actually getting involved.
As well, what I'll say about that sometimes when Son plays up front, he's not very good at holding it, or when it gets a little bit aggro up there, that's not his game, is it? And I think if Richarlison's playing well and you can put him up there and put Sonny on the left, it adds a different dimension to what we do, because then Son can have a bit of room rather than being crowded out and getting bullied. I don't think Richarlison will get bullied, will he? Do you get what I mean? When they play in the middle, it's you can play to their strengths a bit more. But obviously, we went through we coasted really after that. After the first two went in, didn't we? I think everybody breathed a sigh of relief. We got
like I said before, we got the second goal before half time, and then Newcastle had maybe a 10-minute spell the other side of the second half, and nothing really happened. And that was the only slightly nervy, are they going to get one back and are they going to kind of kick on? But they didn't. But so we're talking about we're talking about then Richarlison's second goal, the way Porro kind of did that lovely crossfield pass. From where we were, we thought Richarlison's first touch had taken it away from him, and then he just kind of nutmegs the keeper, and it was amazing. And then he kind of knee slid down right by us. But then, of course, watching it back today, if anyone's seen it, you then see Porro run to Ange and give him, and Ange is going for a handshake, and Porro just proper bear hugs him, which is amazing. I love that as well. And I think as Udogie as well, there's somebody else that you can't quite see is running over that side to celebrate. Because the whole relief in the stadium was, okay, we've done it. It's 3-0 now. This is definitely it. And how, what a well taken goal. Even if we say that he was in a good position for the first one because of the cross from Sonny, it was such a great ball from Porro, and then to bring it down and score it within a kind of blink of an eye. It was just it was amazing, and the whole place went nuts. And then you could really hear his song. His song was really audible from the South Stand as well.
No, I think you're right. Udogie, when the goal was scored, the first thing Udogie was pointing at Porro because he knew. Richarlison does the work. I mean, he puts it in the net, but the pass from Porro creates the goal. And as you said, that the first touch wasn't good, but the ball was so good that it just kind of stopped for him. Didn't have, I think we all expected it to go further wide than it did. He got to the bounce of the second ball and just slid it in. And the keeper doesn't look great because it goes through his legs, but it doesn't matter. Right, Richarlison is suddenly that focal point that the team needs at points. We need to be able to vary things up a little bit. I don't remember us scoring a goal like that under Ange before, where we've hit it long over the run. I think there was maybe one for Son where he's put clean through it with Porro at Burnley. That was a long pass rather than a kind of a lofted ball. But still, it's great to see that Spurs can take advantage of the gaps wherever they are, and they've got fullbacks again who are capable of making that pass. And I will say that because Porro does love to get forward and he wants to be in midfield and he wants to be attacking. I mean, he was a wing back for a reason. Having Sarr in the side means that we are much more confident that if he does go forward, we have the legs to get back. Because Porro doesn't really get across. Porro is one of those defenders who also likes to go forward and attack the ball and win the ball high up the pitch. And so you need to have someone who is understanding, hey, look, if they're going to do this, someone needs to be there. We talked, I think, in the City game when it was, when Doku hit the post and crossbar, that it was Ben Davies who had gone across to close him down. Well, again, he's doing that because there's no one else who can make those runs. He's having to go across and cover those things. Whereas Sarr, as a midfielder, has the legs to do it. It feels as if he's ambling, yet he's still catching players up. It's an incredible gift that he has to do that. And so, the team just, again, I've said it before, but they functioned better. It was a better balanced team. The midfield, you had one who was ready to sit and kind of be the passer at the back. You had the legs of Sarr. You had the creativity of Kulusevski. Down the wings, you had pace. You had ability to just keep it simple when needed. And then the chaos that Richarlison brings. We had a bit of everything in that team. And I'm not surprised that we turned a decent performance against West Ham into a convincing one against Newcastle. We played with the conviction that Ange wanted.
Yes. So before you saying that, HG, with those players playing in certain positions, Becky, Brennan Johnson. I've not been that impressed with him. I'm not 100% sure, but I think yesterday was absolute bang on proof that he needs to play on the right.
Yeah,
he got a couple of shots. He got a couple of shots away yesterday. Hit the post twice. I mean, I'm not sure if the second one was a bit of a shank cross. I'm not 100, but he was in that position to put the ball there. Got in another couple of positions where the cross just wasn't right. But I actually watched him yesterday, and he got involved a bit more. Tried to take his man on because, like HG said before, his main attribute is blistering pace, and he done his fullback a couple of times, who was Livramento, who's a decent fullback, to be fair to him. So it was good to see a performance from him as well, wasn't it, Becky? And sort of look at it and think, now I can see now that's his position. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, so it's like Ange kind of intimated it, didn't he? At the end, he said he goes something like, "I can't speak for Eddie Howe, but when you've got a lot of injuries, and the injuries that we've got people playing probably out of position, and we've got people playing in makeshift positions." And he's kind of intimating that it was almost the position he wants everyone to be at, but he obviously doesn't want to say that because he wants to have that idea that we can mix it up a bit. But yeah, I completely agree. I think. Do you remember when Kulusevski first started and he used to run at players, particularly when we had Kane and Son and Kulusevski? I always used to say that Kulusevski is one of those players that you kind of it made you sort of stand up or lean forward. It was a little bit like that with Johnson yesterday. When he got the ball, it was like, oh, something's happening. Rather than he's going to kind of fumble it and fall over or go out for a throw in. You were just kind of like, oh. And I can remember a couple of times where he did take it. He did skin the player and he did go past him. And like you said, he had that certainly won the first half where it kind of shaved the post. I think the power that he kind of and the technique he got on that from where we were looked really good. Yeah, I think the second one was a bit more of a sort of hit and hopeful kind of cross that went wrong. But it's just this breeds confidence. I'm reading in the comments, everyone's like, oh, Newcastle woeful. So what? It builds confidence.
Beat what's in front of you. You can
absolutely.
Beat what's in front of you.
And the results that we've got from games where we've probably played better, and the results we haven't got, it was about time we had a game where you build on confidence. And the only thing I really felt it went flat was when you made substitutions. When Højbjerg and Skip came on, you really sort of feel that the game changed. It was much slower, even with Lo Celso. I quite like Lo Celso, the left-footed. There was just, but to be fair to Lo Celso, he hit the ball for Son for the penalty. So really Skip and Højbjerg were the ones. But going back to Johnson, you can tell he felt better running on the right wing rather than on the left wing. Yeah. But it's like I said before, he'll play wherever.
Oh, yeah, she's back. HG, you're Brennan Johnson for you, because obviously you've been a big advocate of him playing on the right. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, to echo. Hi, Beck. Yeah, to echo a lot of what Becky said. Like, I will disagree with Becky a little bit that I do think he meant that second shot. I don't think it was a miss hit across. I think he went for the far corner and it was almost perfect. But yeah, it's all about players feeling comfortable. Like, he's moved clubs. He's in a new part of the country. He's still young. Like, when you're asking him to do something that he never really did at Forest, it's going to be difficult to make the impact that maybe you want to. He got the goal at Wolves, which was brilliant. That's what you want to see from a wing player, because he can't, even on his wrong side, he got in front of the defender and tapped it in. But Kerry's right. You really were going there, Beck. It was sad that it cut out. But
it does it a lot. I don't know why. My internet doesn't go. It just sort of stops. I didn't disappear. I could hear you, could see you.
Okay.
Oh, well, never mind, though.
But look, I do want to bring up one thing that I think Kerry commented very early in the show tonight. This idea here, right? Like, we've seen that Brennan Johnson is a right winger. We've seen that Richarlison, when he's fit, is a decent 9, and we hope it continues. Son is going to probably be the one down the left-hand side if that's the case. So what happens to Kulusevski if Maddison is fit? I mean, should we worry about it? Like, what happens? What do you think, Gibbo?
No, mate. I think at times you can play a Bissouma and Maddison and Kulusevski, but there's it's proof, as it shows at the minute. It's proof there's always going to be players injured, always going to be players suspended.
And
sometimes, we can play Ange type of football, like Ange ball, doesn't necessarily. But you can go to play a different team and think, well, we can play Maddison and Kulusevski today, or do you know what I mean? And sometimes it can be like we want to be in a position, surely, where it's like we're resting Johnson today, so Kulusevski is he's gonna play like sort of left side for right side forward or whatever, and that's what the position we want to be in. But I think the way forward is to class Kulusevski as one of our midfielders. I'd be quite happy with that. I think there's talk today of like Richarlison, Barcelona want him, and he has done really well. He has done well the last few games he's been in, but I just don't see him long term at Spurs. There's just something I don't see him long term at Spurs. But if Kulusevski is going to be classed as that player that takes over that role, then we can buy another forward. I'm quite happy with that. I like him there. I think he's better, and I think I've read actually he quite likes playing there, doesn't he? More than playing out on the wing. So I don't think that's a problem. I think that's a good option. A really good option.
We need to have. I mean, this is like the best teams. Like, the thing is that even Manchester City, like I think they were understaffed a little bit last year and they won the treble. But you've seen that if the De Bruyne is out and Rodri doesn't play, they're very, very fallible. So Spurs need to have 20 players that they trust. Right, and we're not there right now. But Kulusevski would be one. Even if he doesn't start, we know he'll come on. We know he can change the game. I'd love to see him shoot more often. Like it's all well and good cutting in, but he's got the ability to do it. The goal he scored at Norwich on the final day a couple of seasons ago, that was perfect. That's what he can do it. It's almost a shame that we don't see it. We don't even see him try a lot of the time. But yeah, we need to have those players. Becky talked about having strikers who can play out wide or wingmen that can play in the middle. Like Kulusevski's versatility means that even if he doesn't start the majority of games, he will play in the majority of games.
Yeah.
He will be useful all the time. Like, he may never be first choice in a single position anymore, but as Gibbo said, a lot of it will depend on the opponent. Some games we'll need Sarr, and some games we won't. Some games we'll need a bit of extra creativity, or we'll want a bit of extra creativity.
In the West Ham game, I don't know if you agree, Beck, and this isn't me having a go at him, but when he plays on the right wing, in games like that, he becomes too predictable. Whereas I think when he plays in the middle of the park, because there's more of the pitch for him and he comes sort of at it from deeper, I don't think he's as predictable yet. When he's on the right, when you just see him, you think, go on, beat him, and he doesn't do it, and he comes back onto his left foot, and then he puts that cross in, and it's as if the other team are like, we know what he's going to do here. We'll line ourselves up because we know he's going to put that dink left-footed cross, curling in towards the far post. So
it sometimes it does work, because I can remember Kane's goal against Man City that came from Kulusevski's cross, from it cutting in and curling with his left. But and most of the time this season he's been found out, I think, in some games. And even you kind of see with him the indecision of, am I going to take it to the byline, or am I going to cut it back, or am I going to play it towards the corner flag and then wait for Porro to kind of catch me up? So I think I just like the fact, maybe because he had his mask on, and because in the first half I could see the mask, it just felt like he was kind of everywhere in that sort of semicircle area of the 18-yard box, and he was kind of moving across either side, spraying balls to Son and then passing them to Johnson and then back, then getting Romero involved, because Romero was playing fairly high up as well at times. It just felt like he was everywhere, very Maddison-like. And I think, I agree with what you said. I think, it's shown this season with the injuries how we do need more than one player in each position. And if they're all prepared to do that and they start to learn the way to play, it doesn't necessarily matter who it is. And I quite like that, we can't predict the lineup and who's going to play where, because it didn't even occur to me that when you said before about Richarlison could have been playing left and Son could have been playing up front. As soon as I saw Richarlison was in the starting lineup, I would just assumed he would be playing as a number 9. So it's great that we can have that kind of versatility, but they all need to be of a certain standards. That's what I was saying.
Absolutely.
I don't know when it cut off, but I was saying when Skip and Højbjerg came on, you could see the pace really slowed.
Yeah.
We'll come to that. It's because you said Højbjerg's name that you cut out. It's some kind of mad energy in the world. It was like, okay. No, I mean, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say one question before I moved on, but then you can come on. So for me, Becky, Kulusevski plays that position until Maddison's back now. Do you agree?
I hope so. Yeah, because I was reading the comments about he does play there for Sweden, and he, like you said, he has said he likes it. He'll always say he'll play wherever he wants, where he's told to play. But I think, he's much more there's much more flexibility and fluidity to the way he plays, and I think like we've got Forest next, we've then got Everton, we've got Brighton, we've got Bournemouth, haven't we? You know, these
four games that aren't
winnable
really
games.
easy, but they're winnable.
Yeah, I mean,
HQ,
we've got to be careful. We've got to be careful there. No, I mean, like the Forest game, I think we should expect to win. But the other three, like Brighton, aren't that far behind us, and it feels as if Everton and Bournemouth are probably two of the form teams in the league right now. It's like had we played them 2 months ago, fair enough, right? Like, but you know, we did play Bournemouth at the start of the season, and we beat them quite easily in the end. But it just feels as if it's almost a bad time to play Everton, and it's a bad time to play Bournemouth because they've started to get results. And they're starting to feel comfortable under the managers. But Spurs have got players back, and we're at home for both of those games. So you think, okay, like as much as they are difficult games, this is the Premier League. There isn't really an easy game. Like every big team that's gone to Luton has struggled. We struggled. Yep. Arsenal were very, very fortunate. Man City were behind. I think Liverpool got a late draw. I mean, it's like there isn't really an easy game. I'd love to think there is, and I wish it was West Ham and Chelsea every bloody season, but it isn't. You can't help but be excited about what the next few games can do, because as much as we have three very important injuries, and there's no doubt that Bentancur, especially Van der Ven and Maddison, you'd expect to be in the best team, but Bentancur to me is still the best midfielder we have. The most versatile, the best all-round midfielder at the club has been Bentancur. Those three are gone for another couple of months. But after that, it's about now, we've got players fit. There aren't really any suspensions. I think Udogie might be one yellow away, which we'll have to be nervous about. But again, if we get the attacking areas right and we show conviction going forward, we will score goals. That seems to be the biggest issue. Early on, we were scoring at least 2 a game. And when you score 2 a game, you think you're going to win. Right, and we did win a lot of those games, and then the goals dried up a little bit. We only got 1 at Wolves. We only got 1 versus Chelsea for obvious reasons, and so hopefully now the goals will start flying again. Because again, even with the way that Ange plays, you'd think that if you score 2, you're not losing. Right, I really think that if Spurs score 2, they ain't losing a game. So you look at the. I mean, I see that Paul's talked about yellows for Romero. I don't know, but he can't be that far away. I think I read something that
he's got 4.
I think he's got 4, and I think it's 3 games till the cutoff. Yeah, because Bournemouth is like the second game of the season. Like Forest, Everton, and whoever it is as well. I've forgotten. Brighton. Thank you. Brighton are the last team that we haven't played yet, and after that, everything goes up to 10. But still. To me, I would expect him to probably miss one of those games. I think he probably will get booked. If there's a Brazilian in a Forest team, which I'm pretty certain there is, Romero will find him and kick him. So we have to think, sadly, that maybe the Everton game he's not around, but you hope that he will learn. And like I think he proved it last year, when he's on the tightrope, he walks it quite well. There was a few games towards the end of last season where it was like if he gets booked, he misses this, and it never happened, and he was always available. But it's like disaster is only one step away with Spurs, but it's nice that if it's not disastrous, we're pretty good. Like we deserve to be 5th. I even saw. We were talking a little bit about building the squad earlier. I saw a video that Sky put out today. And they had Stephen Warnock on, and he was saying that Spurs, Europa League or Champions League next season, there are players around Europe thinking, I want to play for that man. I want to play for that club because they've got the stadium. They've got a great fan base. If we're playing good football, there are very few fan bases better than Spurs. It's only when we're a bit negative that the whole place turns a bit toxic. But you have to think that Spurs will improve and that players will want to come and will want to be part of what we're building, because it is something that's being built. We're not at the end of things. We're not trying to eke the last days of Kane anymore. I mean, even the last days of Son anymore, but we are clearly, players will look at what we've got and think that's not a bad place to play for 2 or 3, 4 seasons.
100%, mate. Europa would do me to start off with. Get back into European competition. But Beth, what should we talk about first? Should we talk about Son's penalty, or do you want to talk about Romero's, as some would say, lucky escape?
Did that happen before the penalty? I don't remember
Son
when that happened.
scored in the 85th minute, didn't he? The penalty was the 85th minute, so I've got a feeling it was.
You mean Romero's
before.
kick? Are we talking about?
Yeah.
Romero's kick was before the fourth. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that,
Okay.
Beth.
Okay, so from where we were, I didn't really see it, and because they don't show any replays in the stadium, we don't see what happened. So from where it was the Newcastle attacking third, wasn't it? Yeah, didn't really notice it. No. To be fair to the only time I saw the Newcastle fans make any fuss was when Vicario came out and did that sticking out of his tongue thing. Really, it was like it was given. Okay, it's Romero. We all went, oh, it's not red. It's not going to VAR. Okay, let's carry on. And it kind of felt like it was over really quickly. It's only today that there's the fallout. For me, the worst one was the kind of when was it Joel Linton went up with Porro for the header. From where we were, it was like, whoa, because the way he just kind of landed, it was like he's done some serious damage there, but he just sort of pinged back up and he did almost like an army roll on the floor. But yeah, so every time I'm reading the comments about Romero, every time he goes in for a tackle, I've said this before, it is kind of like, and the thing is, when you're in a game like that, it's so comfortable, it's so unnecessary. It doesn't need to do that. And Ange keeps saying you can't stop him, that's part of his game. But the problem is, it's sort of like when you're watching a kids game and they're 12-0 up and they go and do something like that, or they shout at the ref or something. You just don't do that. In a game that comfortable, he should have just stayed away, but he can't. He's like, his way is it has to be perfect all the time. And he didn't want to be any blemishes, and he just, So I've watched it back a lot today. I don't think it's as bad as everybody makes out. Obviously, we had the Arsenal one in the week where that person did the thing on the Luton guy and he didn't get sent off, and it's all a bit like they make a lot of fuss because it's not Romero. In the stadium, we don't even know if it's gone to VAR because it didn't say it had gone to VAR. So it was almost like, right, okay, carry on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. HG, that obviously we debate it in the groups and stuff like that, and I don't think he had the intention to stamp on his ankle or do what he did. I don't think he really cared. I think he just thought, I'm taking whatever I can here, whether it be ball. Then, do you know what I mean? That's how I just think he says that, and he thinks I'm going through here. Probably he stood on his ankle. Do you know what I mean? He's just he doesn't think he's a loose cannon.
Yeah, I've seen those given. I've just read what Paul's put. He's like, it's a red all day. If it's given as a red, But it's just like I said, everyone kind of looks around each other and goes, "Oh God, here we go again." And it's like, "Oh, he didn't get sent off. Brilliant, right? Let's carry on." Unfortunately, every single time he goes in, but then when he gets them right, the whole place roars. When he does those ones where he runs like 20 yards to make sure it goes out for a throw in, and the whole place erupts. So he's just fantastic that way as well. It's just silly in a game like that. It wasn't necessary, and like you said, there's going to come to points where we're going to miss him again. And obviously, you've read a lot today about how you get sent off straight red. It's then 4-game ban, and that's just silly. And that's the side of it. Somebody needs to sit him down. And I've seen a quote from Martinez today saying that he pulled him outside in the World Cup final to say, "You can't do what you've got to do. You've got to stay on the pitch." So you hope somebody is doing that.
I thought he was brilliant yesterday, HG.
Yeah, he was.
And he is brilliant for us. But mate, what were your thoughts on it?
I mean, when you talk about how I don't think he went for his ankle. I think he just went for him completely. That sounds worse, right? Like it was completely out of control. It wasn't a controlled attack. It was.
But that's what he's like.
It's what he's like. The thing is, at 3-0 up, it's incredibly dumb. I don't care what's happened before. I don't care if you're trying to protect a player, because I do think even before this point, Vicario and Wilson had already had a little bit of a set to, and clearly Romero was like, right, I'm going to do something. But that's just dumb. Like, we've got to the point now where this season, I feel like we've already had more red cards than we had all of last season. So red cards are coming. And if you get a straight red, as Paul pointed out, you got 3 for the first one, you'll get 4 for the next one. And suddenly you've missed, a fifth of the season.
Yeah.
And you can't afford to do that, especially when you're one of the captains and you're pretty much, I mean, I still believe our best central defender, but certainly the one that we're relying on right now.
Yeah.
You can't You cannot make those decisions. I don't care if Wilson has kicked the ball past you. You're 3-0 up and there are other players. You are not the only defender. It is not a personal battle. You have to think of the team. And Romero, sadly, is showing that although he has his moments of like controlled aggression, sometimes it isn't controlled and it is just red mist. And people know him for it now. So like I don't think the Chelsea one was a straight red, but it was given, probably because it was Romero. I really believe that.
Yeah.
And that one, I didn't think it was a red either, but I wouldn't have been surprised if the VAR had made it a red because it's Romero and everyone knows that he is sometimes uncontrollable.
Sky are after him. And
the key difference for me is that he puts his hand up, doesn't he, to sort of say sorry, which is not like Romero. Romero usually does the whole I didn't do anything wrong, there's nothing wrong with it. But he actually does the whole sorry. Whether that influenced the ref and the VAR, and I'm just reading again in the comments and saying, you know, by the letter of the law and stuff. But like you said, if that's given as a red, you're not surprised. It's, you know, you do see those given. I often think when they see 14 replays of it and slow down, there's usually more chance that it gets changed to a red, which is why in the stadium I was quite surprised, having seen it back today, that it wasn't given as a red. So it was a bit like, oh, yeah, okay, got a lucky one there, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, I hope, and I mean this, I hope in the second half of the season, the referees are a little more lenient on this because, like, there have been very few obvious violent red cards. Like 2 yellows can always happen, but even the red card that Palace got at the weekend, the 2 yellows for Ayew were a joke. Right, the second one is not a yellow. I don't remember the first one, but I've heard that wasn't a yellow either.
He stood in front of a free kick, I think. He stood in front of a free kick. That was all.
Then that is deserved. I mean,
but he doesn't stand and block it. He almost kind of stands to move away, and the ball sort of goes near him. Okay. He doesn't stand with his feet in front of him. Well, they were both useless, stupid.
They took it quick, HG. They took it quick. And he tried to move his leg out the way as they kicked it. He didn't try to block the free kick.
Yeah, but this is where we are because, like, I know it sounds crazy. Like, I love the fact that this season is shaping up to be a real epic season, right? Like you've got, I mean, if you want to include Spurs in it, and I will, you've got 5 teams that look like they could be there or thereabouts. And there's nothing to say that, okay, I mean, like, I think Newcastle had a lot of home games against big teams, so I don't expect them to really catch up. And United have been the same. They've had a lot of home games. So I think it is the top 5 at most that have a shot of doing something. But you want to see, like, I mean, I want to see some kind of lenience. I don't want to see players sent off for something that is a bit questionable, right? I understand that it's a subjective thing, but again, like we see all the time that referees kind of decide first 5 minutes we'll let fouls go. I don't know why they do that, but they do it. So why can't we do that for the rest of the game? Why can't referees think, I really don't want to have to send you off. I will give you maybe one more chance than you deserve. Maybe this is wrong of me to think, but it strikes me as being that with so many red cards this season, it's causing problems for the league. And like, if Romero gets another straight red, which he easily could, it only takes one camera angle really, and suddenly a good blocked tackle becomes a penalty and a red card. It's a frustrating. Like, you have to play the system in front of you, and if the refs aren't changing, we have to. Our players have to understand the rules they're playing under.
Roy Hodgson said after the Palace game that people pay the money to watch the players. They don't pay the money to have, 10 versus 11, I think is the phrase that he used. Because I used both were really soft, and they like the cynical one, the second one, which is a cynical booking. It wasn't even that cynical. And I said to Jack, there was somebody at West Ham who didn't get booked for doing it. So that was an inconsistency, which was annoying. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a time. We joked on Wednesday watching it at home with it absolutely pouring down at West Ham. And Romero was back, and it was like, he's going to be sliding all over the place. He actually got a booking on Thursday for only making 1 foul, whereas he was probably luckier against this game. It's like we said, it's just completely unnecessary. There's going to be games where we're going to need him to be making tackles and winning the ball back. So, Sunday was not that game. He didn't need to do any of it, and it's lovely watching it back now. And it's like, he's doing it for Richarlison because of what Wilson said and Antonio said about. You don't know if any of that. I think he just does it to everybody. I noticed there was once where he went at Gordon. He kind of like went like that at Gordon, and you really saw sort of Gordon kind of recoil because they are worried at getting really hurt.
I think if you play football and you've been around changing rooms and that, I think they've probably gone, that Callum Wilson's a right tit. You know what I mean? And like, I think they did not. I don't think they were gunning for him, but I don't think they were shying. Romero putting a challenge in, Vicario giving him some stick in that. I think they just think he's a bit of a helmet, so it's probably why they give him a bit. But
I'm going to trust Kevin on this. Like, I don't know this, but I trust that this is true. Yeah. I mean, maybe Romero feels more responsibility, that maybe he feels as if he's the only centre-back at the club right now and he needs to do more. But you've got to pick your battles, mate. Like, that was not a battle worth picking. When you're 3-0 up, the game is done. Like, whatever happened against West Ham 3-4 seasons, it's not happening again. That was the fluke of flukes. You have to understand the situation playing, and the best teams do that. The best players, they know when to play hard and when to ease off a little bit. And it feels as if Romero has no chill at any point. There's no chill in him, and he needs to be better. World Cup winner or not, like you do have a responsibility to the team. You really
you'd have thought, wouldn't you, that Ange today would have got him in and gone, look, mate, I love you. I love everything about how you play. I love your aggression. I know you play like that, but you are one of the captains, and you have got to think, or try and think a little bit before you make these tackles, because we cannot afford to. You'd have thought he would have that conversation,
which is what we thought had happened. So when he was saying there about whether it was 10 games, I remember saying that he hadn't made a foul. That he had gone all these consecutive games where he hadn't made a foul this season. And we were like, oh, he's been made vice captain. He's really kind of maturing and growing up. And it's like we've got the old Romero back, the old Romero back that we don't really want. We want. I like the shithousery side of him, but not at the expense of us having yet more players suspended. And that you're absolutely right. Maybe Ange will say he doesn't pull him to one side, but he absolutely has to. Somebody has to, because.
We can't afford to lose him, Matt. We can't afford to lose him at the minute. We got lots of games coming up, and hopefully he will. Because, like I said, I thought he was fantastic yesterday. Apart from that, and I thought he was really good against West Ham as well.
You said earlier then about what do we talk about? Let's talk about Sonny's goal. Let's talk about the first penalty that we've had this season in game week 16.
Can I just say, when the Romero bit, Zach was going mad, and he was like, he's going to get sent off again. That'll be 4 games. And when you said earlier about Joe Linton's foul, which sort of got away with. Zach said that Joe Linton's just a great big pile of shit. He's just a great big piece of shit, and he said he's rubbish.
Spends a lot of time on the floor.
Yeah.
A lot of time on the floor.
Yeah. But go on then, Beck.
So Porro,
Sonny being your man.
Someone put in the chat that they thought it was Porro that had passed it. I thought it was Lo Celso, but so it's that kind of, in and behind, he's running over. I can't remember if before he'd done the run where felt like he'd run most of the pitch, and then he was fouled, and it wasn't the last man. And it was, I said to Jack, he was almost on doing another Puskas there, because he ran the whole pitch. I can't remember if that was before or after.
Yeah.
So Richarlison's gone off. Sonny's moved back left, and then back into the middle. Sorry, Kulusevski's gone. Has Kulusevski gone right and Johnson's gone left, or? But either
Johnson came off in the end, didn't he, for Hill? Did he?
Oh, that's right. Of course he did. Yeah, Hill. So Hill came on. Son's gone into the middle. The ball comes over. Really poor first touch. Should have scored anyway. And then was brought down by Dubravka. And then we're like, "Woo! It's the first penalty. It's the first penalty." Because I remember saying to Jack every time we were playing, was like, "Who's going to be our penalty taker?" Well, that was easy to work out now, because Maddison wasn't playing. He hasn't been playing, so it was like, was it be Maddison or would it be Son? So it had to be Son. Like I said, Richarlison's already gone off. I don't know whether he'd given it to Richarlison if Richarlison had still been playing.
I don't know who our penalty, obviously, because we've took no penalties, but it would be interesting because Richarlison, I think, is a penalty taker. Maddison's a penalty taker.
Yeah.
I think Son does take penalties. But
he takes them for South Korea, I think.
Mm.
So when I filmed it, anyone who's watched it back on my Twitter, you can hear Jack over the top of it going. He thinks it's going Sonny's bottom left, and I say top right, and it went Sonny's bottom left. But and then I've seen the thing. Is it Sky Sports ask him afterwards, saying, well, how did it feel? When the penalty was taken, did you look round for Harry? And to be fair to Son, he answers it with, well, should we get him back then? I was like, that was a really good answer to that, because my face, you can see now, would have been like, what sort of question is that? So yeah, he took it very calmly. There was no silly VARs because remember, think about the penalties that Kane had. There's lots of times we had to wait a long time, didn't he? Because there'd be a VAR. So he didn't have to wait particularly long. And then yeah, it was great. And then, but he celebrated the wrong side. He went and celebrated the opposite side.
He'll come back. He'll come back, Beck. Don't worry. You haven't lost him. He'll come back. I bet, but it's what HG. I bet Porro's a penalty taker as well, isn't he? Did he used to take him for Sporting?
I don't think so. Like, to me, it's Son. Son is the one who takes it. I think Maddison's record for Leicester wasn't that great. I don't really trust Richarlison to kick it with any power or with any regularity. Son, he's the better. Like, no one is going to be as good as Kane was. So it feels as if it's a downgrade regardless. But to me, if he's on the pitch, Son takes a penalty. I'd almost rather have Bentancur take it. Even though I think he's missed one maybe for Spurs. We got a bit lazy about it. Brian Hill took a great penalty for Spurs once in a cup game. I remember that, but that's never going to happen for Spurs. He'll probably barely play for the club again.
Didn't Lo Celso take one that as well? Lo Celso, did he take one in that game as well?
Took some good penalties that night.
But I do think it should be Sonny's responsibility. As one of the comments says, he scored 155 goals for Spurs. He's not taking penalties and he's not the main strike. He never has been really until this season. It's incredible. So, yeah, if Sonny took penalties, he'd be at 200 easily by now. Or maybe not 200, but certainly much closer. It's Son's job. And if we get one again when Maddison's fit, I would want Son to take it.
Yeah. The other thing that's not related to this, because obviously he scored and not assisted, he's now the club record holder for the assists. He's overtaken Eriksen. He's got 85 assists, which is mad. Because I was thinking this, the amount of times that, I think I tweeted something on Friday about, some people were saying that Son wasn't playing very well. And then I was like, you forget that the amount of goals he scored where Kane assisted Son, and that whole day, that assist record that the two of them had. But now for Son to be our, has had the most assists for Tottenham in the Premier League over Eriksen. Again, it's another thing. He's just a legend. Yeah,
he will go down as legend.
I don't think we've discussed this. Maybe we did, but I don't remember. I know we're almost out of time. Udogie's new contract, it's brilliant, isn't it? That's absolutely incredible. Well,
it's that good. It's that good, HG. Sorry, I've even posted some on one of my social media stories, and I very, very rarely post anything.
That's I have to check out that story, Gibbo. Oh.
But yeah, brilliant, mate, brilliant.
So 2029 is it? Plus an extra year, maybe. I mean, that's a long contract, and no, like again, to be fair to Levy, like if he continues to play this well, he'll bump it up again in a couple of years. I think the next one has to be Sarr, because I was checking that Sarr. I mean, again, he's still got 18 months maybe on his contract, 2.5 years maybe. So it's not running out, but he deserves a pay rise. He absolutely does. He's a massive part.
He's on 10 grand, isn't he?
That's what the interwebs say.
I can't believe that. That doesn't seem right, does it? £10,000 a week.
No, but
he's only 20, isn't he? He's 20,
this is it. Like
20,
maybe 21. But he signed a contract for Spurs when he was 18, and 10 grand a week at 18, you're laughing. But yeah, like it's one of those weird things that 10 grand a week is $500,000 a year, right? So it's a $2.5 million contract signed when you're 18. Now he could. I mean, he's easily worth 50 grand a week, frankly. Because you want to tie those players down, and I was talking about it in a group that he might be wanted all over Europe, and I'm sure he is, but like wherever he goes, his position will not be as good as it is now, right?
What's his market value?
I don't know. I mean, we'd probably get some serious money for him if someone really wanted to pay for him, but again, he'd be going to a squad where. Even if he was fourth choice at Spurs right now, if everyone's fit, maybe Sarr isn't in the team. But if he went to a bigger club, he's going to want to move up. He's not going to want to go sideways to Spurs. So if he went to a bigger club, he's not going to be better than fourth choice. He's not Jude Bellingham. He's not going to go and be the main man from day one. So staying at Spurs makes sense for him, unless he's desperate to go to PSG and take the money. That can always happen. He can go back home to France and have a much easier life. But I think for Spurs, it's a no-brainer, and I would hope for Sarr it's a no-brainer. Like, he's trusted by the manager, he will play lots of games, and he will improve as a player. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, add some goals to his game. You got a hell of a player, haven't you, Beck?
Yeah. And I think he's settled in so well, hasn't he? Like Sonny's really taken under his wing, and I think
Basuma has as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think those kind of French-speaking players, they've all. It's like we've got the South Americans, haven't we? We've got the Spanish, we've got the Portuguese, and then we've got the kind of French-speaking, and yeah, it's lovely. And like when Romero tweeted about the family side of it, and we're building something, and we have a family, and all together, and all these sort of phrases.
Yeah.
I don't want to bash Lloris, but I don't remember Lloris ever tweeting anything like that as captain.
No, he was very reserved, wasn't he? I don't want to put a dampener on it now, but we're talking about Sarr being really good. Come January, and another tweet that came out today was about Jurgen Klinsmann saying Son's definitely going to the Asia Cup. So in January, we're going to be without Son, Basuma, Sarr, Maddison, Van der Ven.
Yeah, Bentancur. It's a lot, and
we feel like right at this very minute, I feel like we're slightly coming out of that. We're only sort of really missing Bentancur. We've not really had this season, to be fair. So even though he's a massive miss, he is a miss. And we've only really got Maddison and Van der Ven out, and you think we're coping quite well with Davies at the back in the midfield. Now we're bringing Kulusevski in there, and then you look at it and you think we could go on a real good run. And then all of a sudden, we're going to have all those players out again.
Someone tweeted we're going to have Højbjerg and Skip back in the midfield.
Yeah.
Oh, God, no.
It'll be a midfield three. If everyone stays fit, I guess it would be Højbjerg, certainly Højbjerg, probably the Celso if he's still around, which I think he will be. We won't sell him at that point. And then you're thinking Kulusevski. But then if Johnson would be on the right, then who do you play on the left if Son's not around? So we're talking barest of bones. We're talking where we were 3-4 weeks ago.
January, they need to sort that out then, HG, don't they? Because they know this is happening. So I don't want to get into a bit. We're going to do some shows about the transfer window. But like we said in the group today, I think it was a shit link, but Calvin Phillips was linked. And a lot of people said, I don't see the point. If Basuma's not there and Bentancur's not there, I'd take Ansar. I would take Calvin Phillips at the drop of a hat to come in that midfield. Over what you're saying.
It's with midfield. It's weird because I feel like we're pretty well stocked. Even long term, I feel like we're pretty well stocked. Even if Højbjerg and Celso leave, you're still left. If Kulusevski becomes a midfielder, you're still left with 5 plus Skip. You're still left with 6, really, 6 first teamers, and you would think that Divine might come back and be part of in that mix. So it's a tough one for midfield because it would almost be like, hey, we need you for a month. We literally need you around for a month, and we might, we'll the carrot of maybe staying longer. But Calvin Phillips to me cannot be a permanent signing because it would cost us a lot of money, and those wages he's on at City would have to subsidise it. And maybe they won't want to subsidise for a team like Spurs. Maybe they won't care. Maybe it's all dodgy anyway and it doesn't matter. But it's a lot of money for someone like Phillips, who I think is 28 almost.
He'll probably end up elsewhere, only HG. But I'd be more than happy to let Skip go and bring someone like that in, knowing as well that Højbjerg event is like a short-term option, really, isn't he, as well? Mm-hmm. But
people are saying there about if there's only 2 league games in January. It's Burnley at home and Man United away, but hopefully there's at the fourth round of the FA Cup if we get past Burnley as well. So
and this is it. Like if we get past Burnley, there could be a replay. I think there still are 3rd round replays this year. I think it's next year they get rid of them. So you're looking at games against Premier League teams. I was happy with a home draw against Burnley, of course I was, but I didn't want a Premier League team. Because we know with Spurs, we've gone out at home to Norwich in previous seasons. We've away at Borough, away at who was it last year? Sheffield United. Forest in the other cup last. Burnley to me is not a game I really wanted. I want to get it done first game if we can. But with there being a little bit of a break, it may not be that horrific. But going to Old Trafford with a midfield 3 of Højbjerg, Lo Celso, and I don't know who. It's a bit nervy. You hope that's winnable. It's still winnable because Man United can lose. But again, Man United play. They always play well against us at Old Trafford. Last year they absolutely wiped the floor with us because they played really, really well, and we couldn't live with it. And we would struggle I mean, again, like United, they can beat anyone at Old Trafford. They could lose to anyone at Old Trafford, but they don't seem to really have a bad day against us. So that's a nervy one, and it's one that we don't really want to lose, obviously, because they are relatively close behind us. But let's go to the question from Jeff that's been up for a while. Go on, Gibbo, what does it say?
So cheers, Jeff. Super chat. He's just said off topic, but I think it's a good one to finish the show on, to be fair. So we'll go to Becky first. What are the season objectives Levy put on Ange? Champions League minimum? What do you think, Becky?
Well, that's a tricky one, because if you listen to Ange, she always says, nope, the plan was to just improve, change the formation, change the culture of the club. It wasn't necessarily a particular position, but there will have been a discussion about, they'll want to be back in Europe. The advantage this year is unless they all bomb out tomorrow night and Wednesday night in the Champions League, all the English teams, it'll be fifth. So that kind of does extend what Europe becomes. So does it kind of drop down to seventh and eighth? I think certainly watching them yesterday, that should be an absolute minimum is Europe. I do think, I've said on the show before, I do think Brighton and Villa and Newcastle, when they get into the business end of tournaments, even if they are in the Europa League and the Conference League, it is going to have an effect. So we don't have that. But yeah, it's a tricky one, because it's this whole idea of, people, I was thinking about this before about, not playing Phillips yet is we used to talk about club signings. Do you remember? And we were like, oh, it's a club signing, and that's why he never plays. You just hope that Levy isn't massively involved in any of that anymore, and that the director of football is doing all of that, and Ange is talking to that person, and Levy is not really involved. But yeah, certainly from a business model point of view, everybody has targets. Everybody has targets within their own kind of role. So Ange will have a target, and he will say he'll just do as best as he can in his first season. But yeah, I would certainly say that, we've got to look at kind of, I would say sixth, minimum, I think, depending on what six ends up being. But he certainly, when it all works like it did yesterday and it clicks, and we've got teams that are dropping points, like HG said, the league this season is proper crazy. Everybody's beating each other, or everybody's scoring against each other. It's great from a neutral point of view. It's brilliant. And I bet the Premier League are absolutely loving it. But I certainly think, we when it works, we've got the team that can finish at least sixth, I think.
Yeah, HG, what do you think the objectives are? I think he would have been told to sort this team out, get them playing football that the fans want to watch, and that the people in the stadium want to watch. And I think he would have said European football back at the club. What do you think?
I mean, there's a comment here that I almost don't want to put up, because I know that it will take Jeff's down. But I don't like. There might be a floor to a prediction, but there's not a ceiling, right? Kenta talks about there being no ceilings. I mean, you assumed that Jeff is talking about Champions League when he doesn't say league. He says Champions minimum, as if that might be a target. I mean, I would have made that assumption too, but where we are now, what we were at the start of the season, we might have said, you know what, we hope to see improvement on the pitch. We hope to see a system coming through. But now we're fifth, right? And we've got, 3/5 of the season to go, right? So we're almost halfway. We're fifth in the table. We're looking up rather than looking behind us. At least I am. I would hope that Ange is too. I would expect he is. It's just about, it sounds cliche, but one game at a time, and we'll see where we are. What the end target is, I think the end target is to look back at the season and say, we did pretty close to our very best, right? Maybe we were lucky in some games, maybe we were unlucky in some games, but we got kind of what we deserved from the season. And the way Spurs are, maybe we are the fourth or the fifth best team in the league right now. Maybe Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal are ahead of us, as they probably should be, because they've had money and backing for the last 3 seasons and more with their managers. And Villa are clearly doing very well with where they are, having Emery just over a year. But still, if we look at the season and say, hey, Spurs are the fifth best team in the league, then great, we want to finish at least fifth. And if it ends up being a Champions League spot because of the new rules, fantastic. But to me, it's less about what other teams are doing and more about what Spurs are. If Spurs finish 7th, but we've had awful luck with injuries, and that's pretty much the best we could have got, I'm happy. If we finish 5th, I'm obviously happier, but it depends on kind of I think I saw a comment from Jamie Redknapp, and I don't want to talk about Jamie Redknapp, but he mentioned that if Spurs hadn't had the injuries, they might be top. They might be up there, even where Villa are. We wouldn't be 7 points behind. At least we wouldn't be that. And so we've got to think that, hey, like other teams could have those injury issues. Like we've seen plenty of teams lose a couple of players and their season gets torpedoed because of it. Liverpool, it's happened a couple of times in the last few years. So you know, if it happens to other teams, it's happened a little bit to Man City with De Bruyne out for half the season. You just never know. But I think that if Spurs are fifth right now, that has to be the minimum of what we don't want to go down. Like we're fifth, we're deservedly fifth. Let's keep that and push higher.
I'd just like to see. I'd like European football. Well, obviously, we want European football back as some kind. I know people knock the Conference League, but that can be used to your advantage. Like we could have played Donnelly, some of these players that we weren't sure about putting in. We can play a sprinkling of them. I know we've had a lot of injuries. But I also like, I like to see us play midweek as well. I don't like going all week without a game. I quite like watching Spurs twice a week when they're good to watch. But I think Europa League is the minimum for me. And if we get Europa League, I'll be happy as long as we've got progression from last year. And we also looked at the following year, we're going to look to progress as well. Then I'm happy with that because as Ange keeps saying, we are at the infancy of what we're trying to do. I'm not 100. I wouldn't want to go in the Champions League and not be ready for it and be and just get hammered. I'm not saying we would, but I think at the minute watching Spurs, I think we are a Europa League team, a decent Europa League team, and I'll be quite happy with that. So thanks for that question, Jeff. So any other anything else you want to mention from yesterday's game before?
It's something I didn't see in the ground, but I've seen it all over Twitter today. So if people haven't seen it, the little mascot yesterday, I think there were two of them in the end. They were doing like press ups, weren't they, in the kind of the tunnel dugout thing. But I've just something that obviously there's a lot of people film Son, don't they? And because he was with Son, I've just seen him when they pan the camera past at the beginning. He does the whole like this in front of the camera, and he's like waving at everybody. I just think he is just brilliant, and I think. Because often when people are mascots, they're quite nervous. When Jack waved his flag with Chirpy at the Man United game, which I remember, I think I've put on the show here, I literally found out the day that Kane left that Jack had been chosen to wave a flag at the Man United game. I was like, oh my God, I've got to pick Jack up off the floor. Kane's not going to be there. Luckily, by then, Son was captain, so it helped a little bit. But he was, when we were in the zone before we went through, all the children were completely silent. They were all so nervous. But that little kid yesterday, just looked so up for it. And I think there's been some good parents in there because that takes guts to go on a pitch and be like that and, really kind of embrace it. And I think, good on him.
Yeah, fair play to him.
And my thing is also, I guess, child related. Everyone knows I've got a little daughter. She's not shown much interest in football. She knows that we're Spurs, but she's also a little bit of a contrarian and wants to be different to Dad because she knows it annoys him. But we watched. She happened to be at bedtime. Was the time when Son got his penalty, and so I was like, "Come and watch the penalty with Dad." And I didn't think she would. I think she just was looking out the window or something else. But she sat down and watched it. And when the ball went in, she actually cheered as if it like she wasn't faking it for Dad. Or if she did, I fell for it. But and that would be the biggest memory of the game. I barely remember the mistake for 4-1. In fact, I don't think I even saw it because it was bedtime. But at 4-0 up, seeing my daughter actually cheer a Spurs goal, it was pretty cool. So that's HG, my extra thing. Mm-hmm.
Straight on the laptop, straight on the Spurs shot, full kit, name on the back, strike while the iron's up, mate.
She's got last year's blue kind of psychedelic thing. I bought her that, and she gave me the eye roll of like, Dad, again. But she wears it as sports during the week, so people will know. And
the scuba diving kit.
Yeah, the blue, the kind of.
I thought you didn't like that kit. You're always moaning about the scuba diving kit.
No, not the wetsuit. No, not the wetsuit. The blue one.
Okay, the Man City kit. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But,
okay. I call that the Kulusevski kit. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there's no way I would buy that wetsuit. That's
what I thought. That's what I thought.
No. I love Spurs, but not that much.
No. So obviously, yesterday, as a Spurs fan, was a good day. Tonight's been a good show. We've had good comments, good interaction. So I think we'll leave it there. Becky, thanks for coming on. You've been you've been in very good spirits tonight. I'm glad you enjoyed your day yesterday. It's always better when Spurs
and
win.
Looking forward to Forest as well on Friday. So Forest is not too far from me. It's like 2 hours. And I finished school for Christmas on Friday. So early dart off to Forest. I'm hoping that Johnson scores on Friday. And then, I'm lucky enough that at the Everton game, I was saying this to the girls yesterday, that obviously we had the World Cup this time last year and we had no winter fixtures to look forward to. So we're lucky that all those awful away games that we had at the start of the season, we've got Everton at home and then we've got Bournemouth on New Year's Eve. So, nice kind of, I like this sort of festive time and going down and seeing everybody. But it's been a good show. It's been fun. Hopefully we kick on and it isn't this just, as low as West Ham was and as high as we were for Newcastle, we just wanted to kind of kick on and to get some consistency now and keep going and build confidence. And, like I said, I think a thrashing was coming, but we want to just continue to play well, keep scoring goals and build the confidence before we lose all of the team in January.
Yeah. So if you do want to, or everybody who's watching, if you do want to see what's going on around the grounds, home and away before, give Becky a follow on Twitter and you'll be able to see what's happening and what's happening down the lane and and all the people who she's around. So give her a follow. And HG, thanks for coming on, mate.
No
me and you have been on a couple of times together now, haven't we? We're getting the band back together a little bit. So good times.
It is good. And the darts start this week. I'm super happy for that. Christmas is fine. When the darts start, Christmas is on. So, Spurs on Friday night. The dart starts Friday night. And it's a good time to be alive.
Yeah. So, thanks everybody for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. And all I've got to say is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Okay.